Okay, now that we've practiced adding, finding common denominators for numerical fractions, we're going to practice finding common denominators for our algebraic expressions that we were working with from section 6.1. Maybe the two denominators that we're given are x plus 3 and x minus 5. Maybe the two denominators that we're given are x squared plus 3x minus 4 and x squared minus 16. Maybe the denominators that we're given are x squared plus 6x plus 9 and x squared plus 5x plus 6. We know that if we're going to add fractions or subtract fractions that we have to find a common denominator. We said when we were doing our warm-up video that if I cheated and used 24 in the top one, that we would be okay as long as we reduced all the way. But we definitely don't want to skip and find anything but the lowest common denominator for all three of these guys here. Okay, sorry to make you dizzy, back and forth. Quick review, we said if we're going to build that common denominator, we take all of the factors from here and write them down. Right here. And then we have to make sure all of these are on the list, which is why both 2's had to be there. And with numerical fractions, we multiply that back together to get 12 or 9 or 60. But we're going to leave them in factored form when we're working with our algebraic expressions. Okay, so we said the first step when we're trying to find the common denominator is we need to factor any of the denominators that break down more. Things like x plus 3 and things like x minus 5, they don't break down any further. So we're done with that step. Factoring down here. Each of these polynomials breaks down into smaller pieces. So then the next step we said, when we build our lowest common denominator, we need to start with one of the fractions. I always just start with the first one. And we say, well, this has to be a factor of the common denominator that we're building, meaning I have to put x plus 3 as a factor, not a piece of the sum or difference, anything else but a piece of the product. It's a factor of this expression that we're building. Okay. Also has to have an x minus 5. And we've got everything covered, so that's our lowest common denominator. Again, please do not FOIL, do not expand, do not call this x squared minus 2x minus 15. Okay, we need it to be in factored form to proceed and to go down the road when we go to finish the problems later on. So when we are moving down to the next one, we're going to start with both of these factors here. Okay, and say I've got to write both of those down. I need an x plus 4 and an x minus 1. There they are. When I come across to this one, it says I need x plus 4 to be a factor of the common denominator I'm building. If it's already written down, I don't have to write it down again. But it says I also need x minus 4. Since that one's not on there yet, I stick it on the end. The lowest common denominator between those two polynomials in the middle example is x plus 4, x minus 1, x minus 4, in whatever order you want to put them down. Okay. So in the next one, we start and it says I have 2x plus 3's in that list. Okay. I have 1, 2 x plus 3's, so I need both of those x plus 3's over here. The same way, I'm going to turn the page, the same way we needed both 3's right here to build the 9. If there's 2 3's here or there's 2 2's right here, I needed both of them on the list. Okay, if there was only 1 in the bottom, I had 1, 5 here and 1, 5 here. It means I only need a total of 1, 5 as a factor in that product. So I got both my x plus 3's on there, and it says as I hop across, I need an x plus 2 and an x plus 3. And the x plus 3 is already there. So really all I have to stick on the end is the x plus 2. The lowest common denominator between those two denominators is x plus 3. You can write it as x plus 3 quantity squared, or side by side like I did, and the x plus 2. I'm going to put some examples up on the board, and then you can pause the video and try to find the common denominator, and then on your own, and then turn the video back on and see if you're right. Okay, so here are some fractions. Go ahead and pause the video, write them down, find the common denominators, and then turn it back on and see if you are on the right path. So here are the answers, and I'll quickly, as you're scanning over those, write down the factored forms of these polynomials that I made up. On the top one, as we start across, I need to make sure I have both the 5 and the x minus 5. Some students leave things like same on the bottom with the x and the x plus 4. Don't forget that sometimes the best I can do is pull a greatest common factor out of a polynomial. But each of those pieces belong there in our common denominator. As we hop to the other one, back to the top one, it says I need an x plus 5, so I put it there. It says I need x minus 5, already there, so I don't write it down again. On the second one, make sure you're careful with your signs. And we get both of those red factors on there. As we hop to the green, x plus 2 is already covered, but I need an x minus 1 on there as well. Okay. On the bottom, same kind of thing, x plus 4 was already there, but I also need an x plus 1. Okay. This is how we find a common denominator when we're working with algebraic expressions.